Body horror warnings. If you do not like body horror, do not watch this video. You will regret it. And then I will regret it. And nobody wants that. Hi, I'm Jake. I make RPG supplements and videos about Pathfinder 2, or PF2. I love PF2. No matter what happens, no matter what I'm looking for, no matter what somebody is asking to make, you can find some way to do it. And the more I learn about the system, the more flexible I think it is. It's really great. Like, anyway, so today, obviously, covering Swarmbloods. Before I get started, I want to say thank you to Dragon of the North Wind, a user in our Discord, for inspiring me to cover this. Because the character build that you made was inspired itself, and it encouraged me to really put my head into this. Because you made a character that was based on... Because Dragon made a character based on the aftermath of PCs killing a necromancer and leaving all of their experiments just lying around. And so the pieces of these things sort of worked together to become coherent and a new entity. It was a really cool idea. So I'm really glad that I stumbled upon this too. This video is going to be something that might bother people because I'm talking about, like, bugs in your veins. So, like, you know, it's really gross. Like, even I'm a little disgusted by it, but it's a cool idea, and it's awesome. And, like, normally I do not do third-party videos. It's not really like a moral or a rule I have. It's just that I have to either have an agreement with the company or I want to buy it and find it good enough and balanced enough to share it with you. This one from Battlezoo Ancestries, Battlezoo, Roll for Combat. It's free. It's the first, like, full Ancestry book from them that's been free, besides Dragons, so it's been a long time. And the link for it is below. If you have trouble finding it, because for some reason I had trouble getting it from their page when I went back to it, I don't know why, but if you have trouble finding it, come to our Discord. I'll give you it directly, or, like, make sure you have the right link. So just the Discord link is below, and the link to the Battlezoo webpage right now is down there as well. You have to sign up for their email to get it for free. But, like, who cares? It's a free Ancestry book, and this thing is huge. So I read through it roughly, and it has some really fun feats. Like, you have a swarm of bats living in your body, and you can... They can arrest falls, so, like, they flap for you, or at higher levels, they can form... You know what? I think I should just read it to you. But the flavor of this is really interesting. So I'm going to read the flavor first, and it's going to take a while because it's a big book. So if you want to skip the flavor and you want to go right to the heritages and the feats, I don't blame you. That's what I did too at first. Go to this time here. Heritages and feats. For everyone else, I'm going to read the intro that is full of flavor, and then the intro, like, out of world about how they work. So this one is the intro from an in-world perspective. It says, from the archives of Aetheria Nyx, one of many. I love the feel of this. This is so cool. I've actually created something similar to this in like a mad scientist kind of concept of different things in your blood and in your body instead of blood, like sand or time. Like, you get cut open and you age things around you. It's fun, so I might put that in a PDF below. I'm not sure. From the archives of Aetheria Nyx. No one is a monolith. We seem to inherently understand this when thinking about ourselves. Our every inconsistent act is justified by circumstance or mood. But we oversimplify others and try to shrink down their expansive, multifarious nature into a single label. so that we can more easily reason about them or create a narrative. We don't have the time or attention to understand every person around us in full, but these simplified caricatures that allow us to function and attempt to make decisions can also do great harm. Even more so for beings who are composites. Almost every ancestry has members who are plural systems, but few more so than ancestries that are literally composed of many different living organisms and yet function as one creature. These creatures possess what is known as a hive mind, and they can appear in many different forms. A worm that walks, a maleficent hive, or a swarmblood. For a swarmblood, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The gestalt is capable of anything a humanoid ancestry can do, while the individual swarm creatures inside can emerge as necessary to provide various benefits. This is perfect for Halloween! In the same way that our blood is full of tiny structures smaller than the eye can see, each with their own function. The difference is that a swarmblood's internals are much larger and resemble tiny animals that normally live independently in the world around them. This leads many people to treat swarmbloods apprehensively. When they've come to understand animals in the normal way they expect to encounter them, it's much harder to grasp their mind around a person with hundreds or even thousands of them inside. Even some who can understand the concept of the hive mind still look down on animals and thus assume that a creature composed of many animals on the inside must be bestial or unintelligent. This is far from accurate. In fact, swarmbloods are said to be able to multitask and process several trains of thought at once much better than other ancestries can, but it's a prejudice that persists nonetheless. Thousands of kitties in your blood. Understanding a swarmblood completely requires us to be willing to see them as a three-dimensional being composed of a multitude, just as every living creature can be. We have to abandon our heuristics and stereotypes, the simplifications that allow us to make snap judgments but prevent us from truly understanding the depths of another person. They aren't good people or bad people, saints or monsters, based purely on our first impressions or quick analysis to sort them into a category. There are only people in their glorious, beautiful, and messy complexity. Swarmbloods aren't so different. We, all of us, are many. This says, it's signed by Etheria Nix, Herald of the Space Element, Advocate of Monsters. Okay, but your title is Advocate of Monsters. How are you trying to say that these aren't monsters? Like, it doesn't work. Oh, I love this. Okay, so the actual Swarmblood ancestry. The uncanny sensation of movement pulsing beneath your skin. The knowledge that anything could wriggle inside your skull while you sleep. And the fear of a parasite making your body its home and stealing your vitality for itself are all very real. Swarmbloods are an unenvied few. Humanoids whose bodies belong not only to themselves, but who share their skin with an infestation with 1,000 minds of their own. This is so great. Linked as intrinsically to the cycles of the moon as they are to the strange symbiotic creatures that live inside their bodies, a swarmblood is most accurately described as multiple creatures who live in a state of harmony. A humanoid host body and an unusual symbiotic swarm called a brood that lives inside that body, carrying out many processes and functions for the composite swarmblood that would normally be the role of various organs and fluids. Now I'm picturing like a bat carrying protein to a cell. While the brood often resembles a swarm of small animals like rats, crows, or bees, these creatures are a single collective, bonded to each other and to their host by a weak telepathic net. Broods can't survive independently just as they serve a vital function in the host's body. So too do they require the host in order to live. Once a swarm blood is born, the bond normally can't be severed, and attempting to do so would, at best, kill both the host and the brood. New swarmbloods are usually born when a swarmblood brood branches off into a new host. This donation weakens the swarmblood slightly for a time, so it normally happens to save the life of the new swarmblood's host due to organ failure or a similar malady that inheriting the brood can fix. There are also tales of the majority of a brood passing on from a dying host into a new willing host, causing the previous host and the remaining brood to die, but some of their memories and legacy to live on in the new host. That's fascinating. It's sort of like vampirism by putting your entire self into a new body. Ish. Both of these processes involve a large number of members of the brood, occur fairly quickly, and require a willing participant. Swarmbloods usually can't reproduce with other ancestries, but they can sometimes have children with other Swarmbloods, regardless of the type of humanoids their outer bodies appear to be, through a process that involves a mixing of their two broods, which can produce a child with a brood that look like chimeras between the two animals in the parents' broods. I would like some bat snakes in my body, please. Or rat snakes. Wait, cat snakes. That's a ferret. While these three methods are fairly benign, rumors abound of another possibility that some powerful Swarmbloods with particularly sturdy broods can manage. Such a Swarmblood, the legends say, could break off a single member of their brood from the collective. Then that single member would crawl inside another humanoid, wriggling beneath the skin and laying numerous small, jelly-like eggs, and quickly returning to their host body before the separation kills them. This is so gross. After that initial deposit, the legends say that over the following month, the brood's eggs begin to hatch under the light of the changing moon. As the brood grows, they slowly consume their host's organs, making space inside the body to continue to grow and reproduce, all while the host is still alive. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it's probably a creepy experience, but not like mind-wrenchingly painful. I'm just going to say that like the new brood has like some anesthetizing effect. Because otherwise, this is horrible. And like, I don't think that they would survive, because they wouldn't want to go through with it. After a full lunar cycle, the infestation is complete. Host and brood united as both many and one by their Swarmblood state. While some believe this rumor is unreliable, especially the connection to the moon, which could be simply based on distorted stories of were-creatures, many Swarmbloods attest to the sense of peace and solace their brood feels when they are bathed in moonlight. Sure, why not? Whether performed quickly to save a life, or slowly by a powerful Swarmblood infesting another with eggs, the transformation into a Swarmblood is painful and often frightening. Okay, never mind. And the process of choosing a new host for the brood requires great prudence and care. While the curse could heal those with weak or dying organs, a host with a frail enough constitution might not survive the change. The stress on their body could kill them during the process, especially the slower month-long infestation, which requires time for the brood to mature. Understanding both the advantages and drawbacks of living with an infested brood, most Swarmbloods value consent above all else in the process, which is part of why unwilling infestations remain a legend. Okay, well that makes sense. Because, like I said before, if somebody can't handle it, then they could pass out, die from heart failure, they just might not be able to be okay with it. Even those who choose this path voluntarily might not be prepared for the pain of the transformation or the unnerving changes it brings about. If you want to play a character with a horrifying secret hiding under their skin, who has a swarm of tiny creatures inside of them and at their command, or to explore the trauma of undergoing a frightening transformation and suddenly sharing a body with creatures who have never known another home, you should play as Swarmblood. This really is perfect for October. I'm so glad that they released this. Okay. You might think of yourself and your brood as a collective, we, rather than an individual, I. You might identify any group of people you regularly associate with as a community with collective interests, seeking out actions and solutions that maximize the benefit to the whole group rather than the individual. Sort of perfect for a party member for an adventuring party. You might focus on keeping your swarm fully under your skin and out of sight when dealing with others who don't understand you. Makes sense. Others probably avoid your company, finding you or your presence creepy and discomforting, of course. Others probably misunderstand the connection between you and your swarm if they are even aware of it. And others probably worry you might be a zombie or other type of undead creature or a parasite likely to infect them. That is totally understandable. Physical description. Swarmbloods can be difficult to tell apart from other humanoids of the same type as the host. Excepting those times when a few members of the brood make themselves known by leaving the host body to crawl across their face or scuttle along the ground, the infestation leaves few physical tells. Some Swarmbloods might have strange, hard lumps under their skin that wander across their bodies, or others might find that the fine details of their features, like the angle of their cheekbones or lengths of their fingers, can sometimes shift from one day to the next. In extreme situations, typically involving a Swarmblood who suffered from major external wounds or burns before their infestation, portions of a Swarmblood's outer body might be composed of specialized members of the brood that appear while lying still to be normal pieces of flesh, scales, feathers, or whatever their host's outer body normally looks like. In those cases, there are always thin telltale lines in their flesh where the brood members connect with each other, and those portions of the Swarmblood's outer body can detach like any other brood members, leaving behind a hole revealing more of the brood crawling underneath. I recently tried to make a Psychopomp inspired Dhampir awakened animal crow. I called it the Infested Crow. I could have done this. This was perfect. Because I went with like a swamp theme, and it had spells like Vomit Swarm, and it was about like insects, and I forget everything else, but it was about decay. That's right. And rot. This would have been perfect. Absolutely perfect. I'll go back to the basic stats of the Ancestry in a moment. Most Swarmbloods are comfortable around animals that humanoid societies have deemed macabre, like spiders, insects, rodents, snakes, and bats. Their condition also leaves many of them accustomed to the feeling of something constantly crawling under and over their skin, and they are rarely frightened or disgusted by branches that suddenly brush across their arms, or unexpected creatures making their way up their legs. Still, some never get used to the feeling of their brood's constant motion, forever unable to find peace or stillness within their bodies. How would you sleep? These Swarmbloods might move their bodies in strange and sudden ticks, struggling for a sense of comfort that never comes. Swarmbloods who live among other humanoids can develop reputations for being creepy or dirty, though it can be challenging for the Swarmblood's neighbors to articulate exactly what they find off-putting. Many have only vague and half-forgotten recollections of the time they spotted a cockroach crawling up a pant leg, or a wriggling creature inside a stranger's ear. These little odd moments are easy to rationalize away as a mistaken puff of lint or loose hair when someone thinks about them too hard, but they nonetheless leave behind an uncomfortable feeling that something must be wrong with the Swarmblood. There are not many things that creep me out or actually disgust me, but cockroaches are one of them, so this is fucking gross. Anyway, society. See, I told you this was extensive. They did a lot of fucking work. I am proud of them for putting so much work and effort and time into this. The entire PDF is 35 pages long. Granted, like 5 pages at the end are ads, and the first 2 pages are just the cover. But that's still a lot of content for an Ancestry. All right. Society. Swarmbloods are a diverse group originating from many other ancestries and a wide variety of different backgrounds. They are united only by the symbiotic brood they carry within them. With them. There is no single society shared by all Swarmbloods. Despite the changes wrought by their infestation, most simply carry on living something akin to their old lives, remaining in their homes and continuing to adhere to the societal norms of the civilization into which they were born. For many, these community and societal connections are even dearer to their hearts than before they became a Swarmblood, as they become more in tune with the community around them. Many Swarmbloods quickly realize that the way they support and are supported by their local communities is a parallel to their brood and host body on a larger scale. So they're community-minded. It's common for the transformation to shift a Swarmblood's perspective to favor collectivism, though these changes are usually minor. It seems like they would have more of a natural empathy for people around them. Like, oh, we have to support each other because we live in a society. I really like that. Though less common, some Swarmbloods uproot their lives entirely following their transformation, moving away from other ancestries to live among other Swarmbloods of similar broods. Others might move on from their old lives for other reasons, perhaps because they feel disconnected from their families or after being rejected by a community that discovered their transformation. Newly infested Swarmbloods can't always cope with the changes, even if they understood theoretically what the process would entail. Even after making the decision, it's not unheard of for a Swarmblood to attempt to reverse the process. That kind of makes sense. It's creepy as hell. These new Swarmbloods often must accept their brood by themselves before they feel ready to return to their Swarmblood progenitor and learn from them, though not all accept their situation. Some never return. I think this would work perfectly fine for, like, a bad guy that's just... Stop it. A bad guy that's just a worm that walks from the book, but, like, a less dangerous, more human-ish version of one. Like somebody who recently got cursed with this. And yeah, they have to live as a bunch of worms, but they don't understand it. And it bothers them a lot. And so they sort of lash out. And the party has to come in and, you know, either console them and help them, like, regain their sanity because they've been so disturbed by this. Or kill them because they can't control themselves. On the other hand, the rare few Swarmbloods who are born to two other Swarmbloods typically have the fewest problems adapting, as they've had the mixed brood as part of them since before they were even born. That makes sense. They tend to have the strongest tendency to identify with their brood of any Swarmbloods. I like the idea of having, like, a Nagashi that just is made of snakes. It just has a nest of snakes inside, because that sort of fits some mythologies. Like, Medusa's blood spawned all the snakes on the planet in Greek mythology. And so, what if she... like, her blood, each droplet created a snake. So, what, did she have, like, snakes in her body the whole time? It's I guess it's sort of doubling down on whatever flavor you want for your character. Hives. While Swarmbloods rarely build societies together with other Swarmbloods, they do share several schools of thought, which Swarmbloods have come to call hives. Depending on who you ask, the term hive might be short for hive mind, with the idea that they aren't physical hives, but rather collectives of Swarmbloods who think more alike on various philosophical topics. The following are the most common hives among the Swarmbloods. So these are not heritages. These are methods for organization for Swarmbloods and how they relate to each other and people outside of the swarm, or of the organization. The Covenant. For most Swarmbloods, passing a brood on to another person and creating more Swarmblood, or choosing never to do so, even to save a life, is among the most meaningful and serious choices of their lives. Outside of the rare conception between two Swarmbloods, finding a new host is usually the only way for a brood to reproduce. The Covenant are a hive of Swarmbloods who take the relationship between those who share a common brood as a familial bond between them all. So, like, they all have bees, for example. To a Coven Seeker, their Coven is a Swarmblood family, a tightly connected network of infested, all created from and connected by a shared single brood that proliferated across each one of their bodies. Members of a coven are all siblings to each other, though elders are acknowledged as such and treated with respect by those newly infested. Among the Covenant, there is a strong belief that when a new Swarmblood is born, it is their progenitor's duty to teach the new younger sibling about the transformation and their brood before ultimately presenting them before the Coven, so they can know their family and appreciate the totality of their blood. So I picture this being like a bunch of people were, like, kidnapped and killed by a necromancer, and then, like, dumped in a swamp. And, like, all of them at the same time get infested with leeches that reanimate them. And so it's an entire covenant of leech Swarmbloods. That's cool. They're like family. How would that work with leeches drawing blood from each other? Do they share blood? They don't have blood. They just have leeches. I don't know how that works. It doesn't matter. Most covens live together in tightly knit communities, whether they are within Swarmblood enclaves of larger cities or in small secluded villages founded by the coven, where they can live quietly and in peace. From the coven's perspective, their way of life represents the true core of Swarmblood society, and those who choose to live outside their norms are a minority group of rebels and outcasts. Members of the Covenant maintain that all Swarmbloods become members of their brood's coven when they receive the gift of the brood, even if they aren't aware of that coven's existence or never meet their siblings. They take the fact that Swarmbloods with a common brood can sometimes feel a minor symbiotic connection with each other across their bodies as proof of their claim that they're all connected. However, this position causes great frustration for those who reject the idea of covens, especially the scattered, which is a different society structure we'll get to in a moment. Next society structure type is the hidden. The Hidden are the largest hive, representing a plurality of Swarmbloods and possibly even a majority. Hidden simply continue going about their old lives, remaining in their same town and hiding their brood as best they can, or staying with the same adventuring party if they were infested over the course of their adventures. Despite the difficulties of concealing the curse from all but a trusted few, many Swarmbloods are able to maintain this unsteady equilibrium for years or even their entire lives. It's interesting that they see it as a curse. Because most laypeople don't know that Swarmbloods exist, concealing their transformation is often easier than most new Swarmbloods expect it to be. It's rare for anyone without an extensive knowledge of unusual magical physiologies to connect a sudden increase in the local pigeon population to someone within the community who recovered from organ failure, and even if they did, it would seem implausible to others. However, the longer a Swarmblood remains in one place, the greater the risk of discovery becomes. All but the most careful of Hidden, along with those who manage to become accepted for who they are eventually exposed. This usually all but forces them to move and start a new life every few years, and this need for transient life makes it challenging to form satisfying connections in their communities. Of course, this is all the more frustrating given their increased affinity towards such societal connections. This is interesting to me because there are correlates with this and like the World of Darkness vampires, because in the World of Darkness, normal humans don't believe vampires exist. And the vampires that exist in that game system, that setting, don't function like movie vampires. There's some similarities, but like, some of them can go out in daytime. Not many. But, they're not like burned by holy water or repelled by crosses, and stakes don't kill them. So like, they just seem like normal people, even though you only ever see them at night. But eventually, people see that they don't age, or they get discovered by drinking the blood of, I don't know, local animals or something. And they eventually have to move on anyway. So they're secretive, and they don't fit what people expect. So they are able to function in a society for a while after they originally died. But then they have to move on again. Next societal structure type, the Scattered. To the Scattered, the Swarmblood transformation is a curse. It's common at first for new Swarmbloods, even though they rationally accepted the transformation, to find that part of them rejects the melding with their other selves within the brood. These Swarmbloods flee from their progenitor for a time, and while many ultimately return seeking guidance and support, not all do. I think this next part is written a little incorrectly, so I'm just going to correct it myself. Those who come to despise their Swarmblood state are part of the hive known as the Scattered. Needless to say, compared to those who voluntarily became Swarmbloods, those who were infested involuntarily are especially likely to follow this hive's philosophy. On the other hand, the rare Swarmbloods born of two other Swarmbloods are almost never scattered. So, like, if you wanted to become a Swarmblood, you're probably not disenfranchised enough to be the Scattered. You're not upset about who you are enough. But if it's involuntary, then yeah, it's pretty common. The Scattered are openly antagonistic to the Covenant and any covens they come across, and they loudly proclaim their transformation as a terrible curse to any who they trust and know their secret. It's common for the Scattered to feel afraid, confused, and alone, and to blame their progenitor Swarmblood for the pain of their transformation. That doesn't mean that most Scattered seek to rile up angry mobs to wipe out other Swarmbloods. While they might have antipathy or resentment for their progenitor, they more often see Covenant Swarmbloods as confused victims in desperate need of the guidance and help that they stubbornly refuse to accept. Meanwhile, since most Swarmbloods who initially recoil at their state eventually return to their progenitors for guidance, Covenant Swarmbloods often think of Scattered as simply going through a phase. Even though neither means to be actively antagonistic, both hives are oversimplifying the other's lifestyles, and it's a common cause of friction between Swarmbloods and occasionally even open conflict. Sounds to me like the Scattered are just not accepting or willing to accept life. And the Covenant are too willing and ready to accept something horrible in the eyes of the Scattered. Other Scattered are simply angry. Ultimately, they are often truly angry with themselves for choosing to agree to the transformation, but they often deflect that anger outward as a self-preservation mechanism, justifying their actions by rationalizing that their progenitor undersold the pain of the transformation and the unease of their new life while overselling the benefits, misleading them into making a huge mistake. Some remain outraged for the rest of their lives, and this outrage defines their relationship both to their own brood and to all other Swarmbloods. Those who despise their Swarmblood nature the most posit a different reason for the name of their hive, a secret meaning that they consider to be the true one. They are scattered not because they are foolish lost souls, but because they will someday find a cure for the Swarmblood curse, scattering the broods of all Swarmbloods and returning sovereignty over their bodies. They believe any Swarmblood who opposes their cure to be brainwashed and are determined to provide it to all, whether they want the cure or not. Unfortunately for these scattered, they have yet to make any breakthroughs on a cure, but as with most things magical, all it takes is one genius mage or lucky experiment to change the world. The last societal structure for Swarmblood is the Seekers. Sometimes, new Swarmbloods feel that the transformation has changed them too much to remain in their old lives, reject the familial lifestyle of the Covenant and resentment of the Scattered. They instead feel sheer wonder of becoming Swarmblood and wish to seek their own path through the world. These rare few call themselves the Seekers. In other words, adventurers in a box. Seekers are ever curious and willing to experiment to help them find the place that feels right for them. As such, they often become wanderers or pursue an adventurer's life, right? Others might move to a remote hermitage for a time, where they can live in solitude with their brood without fearing the day they are discovered by their neighbors, giving them a chance to quietly reflect on a journey of self-discovery until they're ready to move to the next phase of their life. I love the idea of there being like a monastery and one or two of the clerics or priests there or whatever are Swarmbloods, and they really just want to be religious right then. They're just like removed from the world and they're trying to find themselves and find their place in the universe, multiverse. Sometimes a seeker finds what they were searching for, either on the road or within themselves, allowing them to put down roots. Other seekers consider this a joyous occasion and the culmination of the seeker's path. They sometimes call those who have succeeded the Found to indicate this momentous milestone, but they use this as a term of respect and not as a way to isolate these seekers by elevating them. Yeah, of course. To other seekers, the Found are ultimately still seekers, and they might later discover that there's another stage to their journey they have yet to begin. That's cool. Like they're just constantly looking for self-identification, self-enlightenment, and a higher purpose. Now beliefs, right before we get to the heritages. Beliefs. Swarmbloods come from many backgrounds and consequently have many perspectives on life. And nowhere is this more exemplified than in the diversity of attitudes toward reproduction. For instance, Swarmbloods of the Covenant believe that finding new hosts willing to become Swarmbloods is necessary for their collective survival. Something both good and imperative for them to do so. And that makes sense to me because organic thinking mammals, at least, have a drive to reproduce. It isn't necessarily sexual. It's still a drive to reproduce. On the other hand, the Scattered more often resent receiving the transformation and believe convincing another to accept the infestation to be unethical, even if it would save their life. That sounds a lot like the vampire who, like, sees someone dying and offers to save their life, but tells them, but it's going to be bad, are you sure? I like the correlates here between vampires and this ancestry. Other Swarmblood hives often fall somewhere in the middle, perhaps longing for the connection of family or feeling a deep connection to the brood's desire to create a legacy while avoiding an active search for new hosts, either to help remain hidden or because they prioritize seeking out their own path. Swarmbloods are usually no more or less religious than other humanoids of the same ancestry as the host, though their slight tendency to collectivism also lends itself to a collective religious faith. So, like, you don't make up your own faith. You follow one that's already well established. Though the deities worshipped by Swarmbloods are diverse and often influenced by their homelands and backgrounds, some faiths do attract more Swarmblood followers than others, and those who become devout only after their infestations gravitate toward these deities. I'm going to mention a bunch of deities' names that I'm not familiar with. I think it's from a different world than Galarian, because this is Battlezoo, and if they have a separate setting, I don't know. The worship of deities associated with the moon, such as Talir, the dragon deity imprisoned in Alakar's moon, helps Swarmbloods to connect with the primal or mystical nature of their being. These lunar Swarmbloods often build kinships with lycanthropes among these faiths out of their shared experiences of being transformed into something more monstrous. Totally makes sense. Deities of community, civilization, and cities, like Tova the Father or Castili the Marquis of Civility on Alucard, are also popular. These faiths recontextualize the Swarmbloods brood as the inhabitants of their body, much like the Swarmblood inhabits a city or wider community, and they also help the Swarmblood maintain their humanoid connections with the people around them. Okay. So deities that are about cities, community, moon, lawfulness in general, I guess. Like I could see Abadar. Deities of nature and animals such as Tandat and Chira on Alucard are also popular, particularly among pest swarm and wing swarm Swarmbloods, whose broods take on the shapes of holy animals. Oh, that's cool. For those who were devout prior to their infestation, it's common to remain of the same faith even after the transformation. The infestation rarely prompts religious Swarmbloods to lose their faith or move to a new church. When it does happen, it's primarily followers of deities whose doctrines are incompatible with life as a Swarmblood or with the philosophy of their hive. That makes sense. Popular edicts for Swarmblood. Protect and preserve your brood. Find and cherish family where you can. Pass on a legacy you can be proud of. That is very relatable. That's kind of just how humans instinctively act. Yeah, that's very basic. Okay. Popular anathemas. Prioritize the few over the many. Refuse to accept that a person has many facets. Make a unilateral decision that changes another's life without their consent. So, okay, the Swarmbloods might be really gross, but they seem like really cool people. It's not what's inside that counts, it's what's inside that counts. Names for Swarmbloods. Though not all Swarmbloods feel compelled to choose a new name, some do, and these names often either reflect their new lives as a collective of many minds, or take after the creatures of the Swarmbloods brood. Oh, like my name is Batula, because I have bats. A collective noun normally used for a group of the animals in a Swarmbloods brood are also popular choices, such as Mischief, for a Swarmblood infested by rats. That's great! My name's Mischief. Why? Oh, because I have 1,000 rats in my body. Among the Covenant, it's customary for a progenitor to bestow a new name to a Swarmblood child they infest once their transformation is complete, though those who flee the transformation might not receive this new name until their return. And by Swarmblood child, they don't mean like a little baby. They mean a person that's now a Swarmblood. It doesn't matter what age the host was. Some particularly self-loathing scattered who think of themselves as accursed monsters rather than people also change their names, choosing deprecating monikers like Sack or Intrusion, or adopting the cruel jeers of suspicious lay folk for a new name. Really? Okay. Swarmbloods who keep their birth names often find it helps them to feel grounded in their previous identities, and it's typical for those Swarmbloods from hives other than the Covenant to have names that are customary among their ancestry or homeland. This is like an entire structure of a culture in this book. Awesome! I love that this exists. This layout is extremely helpful, too, for a GM. For a GM, not for Jim. I don't know who Jim is. Sample names. Finley, because you have piranhas in your skin. Flock. Gossamer. Hookbeak. Intrusion. Mischief. Plague. Well, that's a good name, Plague. Plume. Quill. Sack. Silkwing. Vagabond. Love that one. Whisker. Cool. Yeah, that's neat. Before I get to the heritages, I have a couple of inset panels to read. Swarmblood Adventurers. Swarmbloods can come from all walks of life before their curse, but many only feel the call to adventure after they become Swarmbloods. Those with the Animal Whisperer background might feel a stronger connection to the creatures of their swarm, while scattered Swarmbloods who leave their communities after their infestation might have the Nomad or Hermit background. Because those with the sturdiest fortitude fare best in their transformation, many Swarmbloods have a high constitution score and choose classes that benefit accordingly, such as Kineticist, Barbarian, or Champion. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. You're healthier than when you got infested. Swarmbloods and Body Horror. The Swarmblood Ancestry has some descriptions that could be disturbing or nauseating for some players. So talk to the other players in your group about playing as Swarmblood, and you can potentially tone down some of the visual descriptions or change which creatures constitute your brood if spiders are a problem but mice aren't. Yeah. Alright. Now, base abilities of the Ancestry. Rarity, rare. Go figure. Hit point 6. That's not very good. Size, medium or small. Speed, 25 feet. Ability boosts, Constitution, Intelligence, and Free. Ability flaw, Wisdom. I don't agree with that, because animals should have high senses. That's a high Wisdom, not a high Intelligence. So I think it should be Constitution, Wisdom, and Free. Ability boost, ability flaw, I don't know, Intelligence, Charisma. Languages. Common, additional languages equal to 1 plus your Intelligence modifier. Traits. Swarmblood, Aberration, and Humanoid. Awesome! Second Aberration Ancestry. Low light vision. Hollow husk body. Your hollow body houses a swarm instead of fluids and organs. The DC for you to recover from persistent bleed damage is 10 instead of 15, or 5 instead of 10 if you have particularly effective assistance. That's for all of them. It's great! Obviously, this is an ancestry that is perfect for a swarm keeper. Howl the Wild paved the way for this. They also have an ability called Safe Within the Nest. You can keep your brood safe inside your body, but risk losing some of them each time they venture out of the nest. When you use an action with a Swarmblood trait, you gain weakness equal to half your level, minimum 1, against area damage and splash damage until the end of your next turn, or until you spend an interact action to draw the swarm back into your body, whichever comes first. I'm not sure why it's splash damage or area damage. I get that you are a swarm, but if they leave your body, you no longer have a swarm inside you. So why would it be those things that are the weakness? Whatever. It is balanced. And it is mechanically sound because you are basically a swarm creature. In general. I guess it's fine. Swarm's Release. As a Swarmblood, you gain the Swarm's Release ability. Swarm's Release. It's a free action, has the Swarmblood trait. Trigger, you begin your turn grappled, prone, or restrained. Effect. Your brood pulses beneath your skin, pushing for a freedom denied by the refuge of your body. You stand or attempt to escape as your swarm breaks free from your orifices, lifting or twisting your now empty form. Oh, creepy. You cannot use actions with the Swarmblood trait until you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body. That's a powerful ability. It's a free action to attempt an escape. Or stand. I mean, granted, that's not always going to be useful, but when it is, that saves you an action on your turn. This is great. And now, Swarmblood Heritages. Each group of infested interacts with their brood in slightly different ways, depending on the different types of creatures that make up their brood. Choose one of the following Swarmblood Heritages at first level. Aquatic Swarm. Or if you're British, aquatic. Inside your body, a host of small aquatic creatures such as fish, eels, plankton, or mollusks make their home. Sea monkeys! The water in your body is enough to support your brood even while you are on land, but they thrive when your body is fully submerged in water. You gain a swim speed of 30 feet, but your land speed is only 20 feet. In addition, you gain the amphibious trait, and like all creatures with the amphibious trait, you can breathe both air and water. Awesome! I love that option. Crawling Swarm. A swarm of crawling insects, spiders, snakes, or small geckos live within your body. Iguanas. Your brood usually takes refuge beneath your skin, but they sometimes crawl out through your orifices and creep across the outside of your body. You gain the Creeping Crawler's reaction. How do you eat? Do you eat? I don't think you eat. I bet all the little creatures eat and you don't eat. That's interesting. Anyway, you gain the Creeping Crawler's reaction. Creeping Crawler's reaction has the mental and Swarmblood traits. Frequency once per 10 minutes. Trigger. A foe touches you with hostile intent, such as by grappling you, successfully hitting you with a melee unarmed attack, or using a spell with a range of touch against you. Effect. The crawling creatures of your brood instinctively slither from your body to wriggle all over the foe who dared to attack you. The triggering foe must attempt a fortitude save against the higher of your class DC or spell DC. On a failure, they're sickened 1, and on a critical failure, they're sickened 2 instead. That is great, and it's a great reaction, defensive ability. I like it. And some classes don't give you reactions, or it's really hard to get reactions, or they're not very freaking useful. So this is an ancestry reaction that is always going to be useful in a fight, because you're going to get attacked. Pest Swarm. These are so fun. You share your body with a colony of rodents, weasels, or other terrestrial vermin like lawyers. You gain imprecise scent with a range of 30 feet. This means you can use your sense of smell to determine a creature's location. Okay. The GM will usually double the range if you're downwind from the creature or have the range of your upwind. In addition, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks to seek a creature or object within the range of your scent. That's just damned useful. Granted, it's not for initiative, but it is for finding invisible, hidden, or concealed creatures. It's great. Yeah. Plus, it's just cool to roleplay. I smell cheese. Vespin Swarm. Huh? I'm picturing scooters. That's a Vespa. Your body contains a swarm of arthropods with stingers such as wasps, hornets, scorpions, or bees. Bees! When threatened, members of your brood slip out of your mouth or nose and sting your enemies. Oh. You gain a stinger unarmed attack that deals 1d4 piercing damage and 1 poison damage. If you have multiple damage dice, such as from a striking rune, the poison damage increases to 1 per weapon damage die. Oh. Oh. Okay. So, like, if it's striking, then you have 2d4 plus 2. Your stinger is in the brawling group and has the finesse trait. Wing Swarm, my favorite. Scores of flying creatures such as bats, birds, or moths live under your skin and behind your eyes. When you fall, your brood vigorously flaps their wings to carry you aloft. You take no damage from falling regardless of the distance you fall. That's really cool. At first level, no distance limit. Neat. Ancestry Feats. These here are the meat and potatoes. First level, Composite Kinship. First level feat, obviously. Communicating with your brood every day grants you insights into communicating with hive minds and other beings composed of many connected individuals, as well as the ability to speak to similar animals. You can ask questions of, receive answers from, and use the diplomacy skill with animals who match the animals that comprise your brood, whether they're in a swarm or not. You can attempt to coerce, demoralize, feint, make an impression, and request against swarms and other creatures with multiple conscious minds, even though they would normally be immune. Cool! I love things that break rules. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to deception, diplomacy, and intimidation skill checks made to take these actions against swarms and animals matching your brood. This is pretty powerful. If you're a master in the skill, the circumstance bonus increases to +2 using that skill. Yeah, this is just fucking neat, because you can choose any animal you want, or any creature you want, I guess. Yeah. Fluttering Heart. Next feat, level 1, 1 action, prerequisites, Wing Swarm Heritage. Your brood all emerge and flap their wings at once to carry your body for a brief flight. You fly. If you don't have a fly speed, you gain a fly speed of 15 feet for Fluttering Heart. If you aren't on solid ground at the end of your movement, you fall. And that's not just once per round. You just fly. Flappy flap. Flap flap. Yep. You can just do that 3 times in a round if you want. That's better than a flying awakened animal. Awesome! Next feat, level 1, Plague Swarm. Your brood sometimes brings in plagues and diseases to course through your body harmlessly. Gross. Inoculating you and boosting your body's immune response. Each time you succeed at a fortitude save against an ongoing disease, you reduce its stage by 2 or by 1 against a virulent disease. Occasionally, incredibly useful. Each critical success you achieve against an ongoing disease reduces its stage by 3 or by 2 against a virulent disease. That's just awesome. Look at this guy on the screen. Isn't he great? He's got piranha arms. Such a little dwarven berserker barbarian with piranha arms. Yup, that's normal. Next feat, level 1, Scatter! 1 action. It has the auditory and visual traits. In a spectacular cacophony of chaos and sound, your brood vacates your body and flees in every direction. In the confusion, you can step 10 feet instead of the usual 5 feet, probably because you're weightless, and then roll a deception check to create a diversion. If your step moved you to a spot where you have cover or concealment, you can remain hidden even after the end of your turn. You can't use actions with the Swarmblood trait until you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body. Now, this is a little bit more powerful than I think an Ancestry Feat in Pathfinder 2 would be, but I think it's passable because it's such a narrow focus, narrow usage. It's just a really good feat. Next feat, also level 1, Swarm Familiar. One member of your brood can leave your body and act independently, scouting and carrying out complicated missions. You gain a familiar, and this familiar must match the animals that comprise your brood. This was a great idea for a feat. If you have the Aquatic Swarm heritage, your familiar must have the Swim Familiar ability, and if you have the Wing Swarm heritage, your familiar must have the Flyer Familiar ability. For obvious reasons. Next feat, also level 1, Swarmblood Lore. Since your infestation, your connection to your brood has helped you to gain a deeper understanding of your condition and the behaviors of other creatures with multiple consciousnesses. That's a lot of consciousnesses. You gain the trained proficiency rank in nature and intimidation. If you would automatically become trained in one of these skills from your background or class, for example, you instead become trained in a skill of your choice. You also gain the additional lore skill feat in Swarm Lore, not just Swarm Blood. That seems like cheating. I mean, granted, it's totally useful because, like, lore in just Swarm Blood isn't going to come up much, but, like, Orc lore could, and Swarm lore definitely could as well. I love that construction. Good choice. Well made. Next feat, also level 1, Watching Swarm. One action has the Concentrate trait. The creatures of your brood crawl out of your body and across your skin, looking in all directions. You gain all-around vision until the start of your next turn. This lets you see in all directions and prevents you from being flanked. Just flat out prevents you from being flanked? Okay. Okay. It's one action. That's not actually all that powerful, but it is useful. Because you can still be off guard for other reasons. It just stops you from being flanked. And takes an action. And if you're, like, currently have enemies on either side of you, spending an action is a serious cost in combat. So it is actually balanced. It's okay. 5th level feats. Empty Body. Frequency once per minute. Trigger. An enemy's strike against you is a critical hit. Your brood surges out of your body to escape sudden danger. The triggering attack deals only the amount it would deal on a hit. Typically full damage instead of double damage. Any other effects caused by a critical hit still occur. So, like, if it's magical and it has a special effect on a critical hit, you still take that effect. The shock of your swarm escaping when you were unprepared leaves you sickened 1. Ew. And you can't use actions with the Swarmblood trait until you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body. That's a really good feat. It's well made. It has a significant cost, but it can save your life. That's great. It's good. Next 5th level feat, Fractal Wings. Prerequisites, Fluttering Heart. I just love the winged one. It's so cool. Your brood flows out of you and interlocks themselves together tightly, forming huge wings capable of carrying you aloft for a greater distance than their independent flapping could. The fly speed you gain from Fluttering Heart increases to 25 feet. This should also be, like, extremely obvious, because you're not just, like, flapping wings that you have because you're an awakened animal. No. You're creating, like, a 30-foot wingspan of bats that are holding each other's claws. Next level 5 feat, Resurgent Host. You've managed to get your brood to mimic more of your old internals than usual, though ultimately it's still just a mass of creatures connecting together and appearing as flesh and organs. And you've gotten in touch with your roots. You gain the Adopted Ancestry General Feat for the ancestry you once were before becoming a Swarmblood, and you also gain 1 first level Ancestry Feat from that ancestry. That's great! Oh, that's so great! Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. Cat hair in my eye! I am a Swarmblood of cat hair. Shifting Swarm. Also 5th level feat. You have learned to manipulate the members of the brood beneath your skin capable of appearing as flesh to come together over your body in different configurations, changing your appearance drastically and assisting your humanoid disguises. You don't need a disguise kit to impersonate and can assume any humanoid form of your size in 1 minute. That's really fast. You can shed your disguise to return to your body. You can shed your disguise and return your body to its natural shape with a single action, which has the Swarmblood trait. When you use Shifting Swarm, your impersonate action gains the primal and transmutation traits, and you don't take circumstance penalties for disguising yourself as a creature of a different humanoid ancestry. Really nice. Good feat. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but it's true. Next feat, Tessellated Shield Reaction. Also level 5. Frequency once per hour. Trigger, you would take damage from a physical attack. Members of your brood leave your body and weave themselves together in a tight tessellation, creating a barrier between you and the oncoming attack. You gain resistance equal to twice your level to all physical damage you would take from the triggering attack. Twice your fucking level. That's amazing. That is fucking amazing. You're basically just ignoring one attack. I mean, it's 5th level feat. Maybe you would take some damage from it. Maybe. And it is a reaction on its own, so you wouldn't be able to use Empty Body as well on the same round, same attack. But you could have both. That's great. It increases with your level. It's a really, really powerful feat. Vigilant Watching, also level 5 feat. Prerequisites Watching Swarm. Your swarm can watch over you easily. You can use Watching Swarm as a free action instead of a single action. If you do, it only prevents you from being flanked by creatures of your level or lower, rather than all creatures. That's fine. I would never take that, because I don't care. Because all the other ones are more fun, or save your life. But it's not a bad thing. 9th level Ancestry Feats, Embrace of Home. Feeling the embrace of your brood coming home to your body fortifies your resolve. When you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body, you gain temporary hit points equal to your level. Awesome. You lose any remaining temporary hit points at the end of your next turn or the next time you use a Swarmblood action, whichever comes first. Okay, that one's a little overpowered, because there is no restriction on how often you can do it. Granted, you have to use an action to let the swarm vacate your body and then spend that action to bring the swarm back in. But then you get temporary hit points equal to your level every time you do that. Okay, I mean, I will allow it, but it is, just bear in mind that that's pretty powerful. Next level 9 feat, Eternal Fractal. Prerequisites Fractal Wings. You can seamlessly use your fractal wings without exhausting your brood, allowing you to fly at will whenever you want and for as long as you need. You gain a fly speed equal to your land speed. Using the fly action with this fly speed gains the Swarmblood trait, as it requires releasing your brood to do so. And if you use an interact action to draw your brood back while flying this way, you remove your wings and you fall. That makes sense. It's great. It's just like the awakened winged animal flying ability level 9. Well, actually, it's better, because it's not just once per round. No, it's constant, just like the other one. Okay, never mind. It's great. Yeah. It's the same. Next level 9 feat, Grasping Hold. Prerequisites, Crawling Swarm Heritage or Pest Swarm Heritage. Your swarm crawls across your body and covers your limbs, grasping tightly onto surfaces to allow you to move and climb with ease. You gain a climb speed of 15 feet. Really? Level 9? No, that should be level 5. Because, the winged one can fly at first level really well. It's still only 15 feet, but no, Grasping Hold, that's too high level. Level 9. I would say level 5. That should be fine. Next feat, Lingering Toxin. Also level 9. Prerequisites, Vespin Swarm Heritage. I remember that was arthropods, like bees and wasps. When you achieve a telling blow with your stinger, you leave lingering poison within your foe's body. On a critical hit with your stinger unarmed attack, the foe takes 1d4 persistent poison damage. That should increase with level. It doesn't. Next feat, level 9, School of Fins. 1 action, concentrate trait, prerequisites, aquatic swarm heritage, requirements, you're underwater. Your brood spreads out around you in a school of fins to conceal you from foes. You become concealed until the end of your next turn, or until you use an interact action to draw your brood back into your body, whichever comes first. Fine. That is quite useful. Next feat, level 9, Swarm Kind Form. 1 action has the traits of Concentrate, Polymorph, Primal, and Transmutation. You release your brood and shed your skin, transforming into an animal of the same type as your swarm and allowing you to scout an area by yourself, posing as an innocuous-looking animal. You gain the effects of a pest form spell, except that you must assume a tiny battle form that matches the creatures of your swarm. You can use this action again to return to your normal form. Special, if the creatures of your brood can fly and you have the Fractal Wings Ancestry Feat, you gain the effects of a 4th level pest form spell, and your swarm kind form gains a fly speed. Great. That's also a useful level 9 feat. I think I would probably, like, if I cared about being able to be in pest form, I would have gotten it way before level 9. 'Cause you can. Next level 9 feat, Swarm Reach Spell. It's a free action. It has the Concentrate and Meta Magic trait that is now spell shape. Prerequisites, able to cast spells, frequency once per hour. Your brood spills out from your body and delivers a spell effect at an increased distance. If the next action you use is to cast a spell that has a range that requires 2 or fewer actions to cast, increase that spell's range by 30 feet as your swarm delivers it. Okay. As normal for increasing spell ranges, if the spell normally has a range of touch, you extend its range to 30 feet. You can't use actions with the Swarmblood trait until you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body. That's totally fucking worth it to cast a touch spell at 30 feet. Very good feat. Next level 9 feat, Swarm Shield. Your brood spreads out across your form, interlocking with each other and forming a shield to protect you from harm. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to your AC. This bonus lasts until you use an interact action to draw your brood back into your body. You can't use actions with a Swarmblood trait until you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body. That's boring as fuck and unnecessary. It is just +1. Just pick up a shield. Like an actual shield. Just use a shield. Anybody can just use a shield. Fine, it will have some very niche uses, but I don't think it's worth being a feat. Certainly not worth taking. 13th level feats. Consume the Self. 1 action. Frequency once per day. You cannibalize your swarm to keep yourself alive. You absorb a portion of your brood into your body and steal their vitality to heal your injuries, regaining 1d8 hit points per level you have. Whoa. Losing this significant portion of your brood leaves you fatigued, and you can't take Swarmblood actions while fatigued in this way. That is okay. Okay, now I accept that is more balanced than I thought it was at first. That's a really good feat still. Next level 13 feat, Discarnate. Reaction, frequency once per hour. Trigger, a creature hits you with a melee strike during that creature's turn. Your brood discorporates, shredding your body and fleeing with chunks of bone and skin to escape the incoming attack. I love this. You gain resistance 20 to all physical damage against the triggering attack. During the triggering creature's turn, your swarm takes up your original space and retains resistance 20 to all physical damage. At the end of the triggering creature's turn, your swarm coalesces and your body reforms in an unoccupied space within 15 feet. Okay, so that is better than the one that is a reaction to absorb, to give you resistance to physical damage from the attack equal to your level, because the swarm retains that resistance until the end of that creature's turn. It's not just the one attack. Alright, and then you also get free movement, so that is a good feat as well. Polypsyche spell, level 13 feat. As the Concentrate and Metamagic traits, spell shape. Prerequisites, able to cast spells, Composite Kinship. Composite Kinship is the first level feat that allows you to talk to things that are swarms or that match the kind of critter that you have in your body. Your familiarity with swarms and the assistance of the swarm within you allow you to weave magical effects that treat their disparate minds as one. If your next action is to cast a spell with a mental trait that normally affects a single creature, you alter the spell to affect an entire swarm instead. That spell can target and affect a swarm or other creature with the swarm mind immunity instead of affecting a single creature. That is a rare and I think impossible to get any other way ability. Awesome. Obviously good feat. Shed the Skin, next level 13 feat. It has the traits Concentrate, Manipulate, and Polymorph. Frequency once per hour. Your brood is discharged from your body and carries pieces of your body along with it, assuming the state of a stirring swarm of many creatures for up to 10 minutes. In this state, you become a highly shapeable swarm. You lose any item bonus to AC and all other effects and bonuses from armor, and you use your proficiency modifier for unarmored defense. You gain resistance equal to half your level to physical damage. Okay. You can't cast spells, activate items, or use actions that have the attack, manipulate, or Swarmblood trait, and you retain your weakness to area and splash damage for using a Swarmblood action as long as you remain in your swarm form. Okay. You gain a fly, climb, or swim speed equal to half your land speed, whichever best suits the creatures that comprise your swarm, and can slip through tiny cracks. You can spend one action which has the Concentrate trait to reassemble your body in your new location and draw your brood back within. Okay. I guess there's no limit on the duration, and you still get resistance equal to half your level to physical damage. There are going to be cases that it's useful, otherwise it seems so rare that it would be useful. You lose a lot for doing that. I think I would probably up the resistance to your full level. Because there are so many problems with it. Next feat, level 13, Together as One. It has the Primal, Polymorph, and Transmutation traits, prerequisite Swarmkind form, frequency once per day. Your brood reconfigures into the shape of a single animal that matches its appearance. Interesting. With the effects of a 5th level animal form, insect form, or aerial form spell, whichever spell is more suited to the types of creatures that comprise your brood. Cool. It did not say this, but I think this is supposed to affect your body, not just your swarm outside of your body. Together as One should actually give you the animal form, insect form, or aerial form effect, not just for your brood. Because that's how Swarmkind form works, which is a prerequisite. And it's not together as one if you are separate from your brood and your brood gets the ability and you don't. So I think it's just not written quite clearly. Next feat, level 17, Eye of the Swarm. 2 actions, frequency once per hour. Your brood streams out of your skin, interlocking with each other and surrounding you with chains of their bodies. You become concealed until the end of your next turn, as do any allies adjacent to you during the duration as long as they remain adjacent to you. You can sustain the effect for a maximum duration of 5 rounds. When an ally who is concealed by Eye of the Swarm would take damage from an attack, as a reaction, you can reduce the damage to that ally by 40. At level 17, that is an appropriate amount, but wow. After you do, Eye of the Swarm ends. You can't use actions with the Swarmblood trait until you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body. Fucking awesome. That's a good feat. And really flavorful and fun. Really just cool and useful. Concealed, too. It's a good feat. Next, level 17 feat. Rejuvenating Swarm. It has the traits Necromancy and Primal, frequency once per day. Your brood pours out onto the surface of your body and rejuvenates you from all harm, continually healing you for 1 minute. You gain regeneration 15 for the duration, which restores 15 hit points to you at the start of each of your turns. While you have regeneration, you can't die from damage, and your dying condition can't increase to a value that would kill you. This is just a 7th level regeneration spell. So, level 17 is a little bit long to wait for, but it's awesome. It's a really good spell, though. Anyway, so, you can't die from damage, and your dying condition can't increase to a value that would kill you. This typically stops you from going beyond dying 3. Though if your wounded value becomes 4 or higher, you stay unconscious until your wounds are treated. That is the same way the regenerate spell works. You can't use actions with the Swarmblood trait until you spend an interact action to draw your brood back into your body, and if you do, the regeneration ends immediately. If you take area or splash damage, this disrupts your swarm's ability to heal you, and your regeneration deactivates until after the end of your next turn. With the regenerate spell, it's acid or fire, so this is area or splash. It's about even. on rarity. Each time you regain hit points from this regeneration, your swarm reconstitutes one damaged or ruined organ, though in most cases you don't have organs as the swarm replaced them. During the effect's duration, you can also reattach severed body parts by spending an interact action to hold the body part to the area from which it was severed, causing the swarm to crawl over the gap between and restore the connection. That's awesome. Obviously, it's really cool. It's a way to regenerate if you're not a caster. Last feat, level 17. Revival Recursion. Reaction, frequency once per week. Trigger, you die. Your body dies, but your brood escapes with your consciousness and resuscitates you. The GM secretly rolls 1d4. A number of rounds after your death equal to the result, your brood coalesces and your body reforms in an unoccupied space within 15 feet of your choice. Your new body has 1 hit point, and no spell prepared or spell slots, no focus points, or any expendable resource granted by your class, feats, or ancestry. You are stunned for 1 round after reviving, and you are clumsy 2, drained 2, and enfeebled 2 for 1 week. These conditions can't be removed or reduced by any means until the week has passed. So that's basically a raise dead spell that was not a critical success. Awesome. This fits the strength level of some of the ancestries of Tian Xia. Like the Sprite and Yao Guai can resurrect. There's another one too. Leshy? I think it's Leshy. Maybe I'm thinking of Leshy and not Sprite. Anyway, so this is perfect. It's powerful, sure, but not too powerful, and I love that it's like a round later. All right, and that's the end of it. So I'm grateful that I got to share this with you. Thank you for giving me your time. If you're a patron, thank you for being here all the time. I appreciate you a lot. Go get this book. Click the link in the description. This is an awesome free book. I have never said great things about a third-party book, I don't think. And this is certainly not a sponsored video by them, but I don't care. This is great. So for this month, October, Halloween month, we are doing a total of 4 giveaways. 1 for patrons, which will be blood speckled dice. Blood spatter dice. And we're giving away the same style to 3 YouTube viewers. One of those drawings is going to be to give away a 9-piece set like this one that the patrons are going to get. One of the drawings is going to be for a 45mm D20. Big freaking die. And the third is going to be for a set of 6d6 of blood spatter dice. And these are not inked yet. That's why you don't see numbers. They will be quite visible. I recommend black. So, pay attention. Gonna have the drawings some point during this month. I'll make a community post about it so you'll be able to see it easily. But, good luck. I will see you soon. If you would like to see my coverage of Tian Xia, there's a whole bunch of ancestries in there that are really cool too. Or if you would like to check out my builds, they're over here. Thank you for being here. Bye.